got no way, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. There ain't got no way, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no
Okay, so it's another wonderful evening, and we greet you in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. This is your host, Andy Anderson Charles, together with my co host, Gabriella Woods, and of course, our big producer, Brother Dexter Honore, in the backgrounds on the master controls. We welcome you and we give you thanks for your continued commitment and to your support for this program. It is also a community that we are building that would help us come together at various times and deal with all matters concerning mental health, depression, burnout, anxiety, you name it, everything that's concerning these mental health issues that we face from time to time in this life. So, today's episode will be entitled How to Forgive the Unforgivable with Rhonda Britten, and we're looking forward to see her arrive as our guest in the near future. Remember, our annual theme is Thrive to Stay Alive for all of 2025, and the scripture for the year is 3 John 1 and verse 2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prosper. So, for those who are coming on live and those who will be seeing this later on the social media platforms, again, we say thank you and we hope that we continue to build and grow together as we proceed to engage in this episode of Breaking Out of Depression. Let's just join together in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for life, spirit, health, and strength, and the opportunity that we have to gather today and to bring the necessary information and content of value to your people and those who would lend an ear or who would be seeing this episode. We thank you for our co hosts, Gabriella and her family, and Brother Dexter and his family. And we pray, God, that you would continue to protect and guide and lead them and strengthen them, that their resolve would remain consistent with a lot of resilience, God, just being able to bounce back despite the challenges, that we can come together and produce the kind of content that would bring hope and a message of inspiration to your people all across the globe. We pray, God, that whatever we do and say would certainly bring honor and glory to your name, that some soul would be edified, that some soul would be touched and moved and uplifted in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Thank you for the week that has gone by. We thank you for all the other brothers who appear on the LBW Radio Network. May you continue to embrace them and uplift their ministries. We ask all these blessings in no other name but the living Christ with thanksgiving. Amen and amen. So, immediately, I want Gabriella to come in. And so we have Sister Gracie Vincent. Pleasant good evening to the panel. Blessings. Same to you, my dear sister. Love and peace in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Gabriella, insights on our last guest, Rachel Burrell, or as she is known, the Nubian princess. Give us some
Yes.
give us some feedback as we continue with the program. Just what could you recall what she would have said and what may have impacted you?
Yes, most definitely. It was a pleasure to have Rachel Burrell on our platform last week as she spoke about the heart of a warrior with purpose. As in the comments, someone said she is a warrior and all she's missing is her shield and her crown. And it definitely was so. And she explained what stood out for me is that she explained what a heart of a warrior is. And she explained that when life challenges throws things at you, circumstances comes your way. A warrior is someone who looks to keep going forward, looking for solutions, looking for ways to overcome, looking for ways to not be bogged down, but to rise above. And she also spoke about a warrior being someone not only who is in battle, but someone who is able to lead with love. And to me, that stood out so profoundly. Um, another nugget that she left with us is when you asked her how does she have the strength to be resilient, be emotionally intact, to be physically intact, spiritually intact as a warrior. And she spoke about her innate ability. And I think a lot of times persons do not realize that we have the solutions. We have it bottled up inside. And, persons would have been talking to her and saying, Rachel, you can do this, you can overcome this, you have the ability. And, she didn't believe it for herself at first. And I think a lot of times persons don't know the ability that they have, that they was born with, that they was gifted with. And, having to realize who you are and the power that you have, that mental strength that you have to overcome your situations, is something that she took away. And she also spoke about self-motivation. And I was like, wow, a lot of times we don't. To be self-motivated takes another level of another level of a mindset,
Yes,
and Rachel's mindset was just off the chains because she was just 8 years, and having to now turn to writing, finding a way of expressing herself through writing, through singing. And she was resilient from the get-go. She said she was a person who would not just settle for what is happening and saying, well, this is how life is. She wants to know why. She wants to question this. She wants to know what is the reason behind this. So she was so inquisitive. She was a critical thinker from early. And you don't find a lot of young people at this era, being so resilient and being so focused. And she found herself, she found her purpose, as a young child. And she realized, what, I'm not going to allow, the situations and the challenges to overcome her. But what she did is that she rose above it. She found a way to find her voice, to be heard, and to express herself. And that to me was something that a lot of young people and even the older generations need to hear. So that was one of her nuggets, her two nuggets that stood with me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that really impressed me about Rachel is that she spoke about not procrastinating. She seemed to have a kind of mind that says, okay, if something needs to be done, then whatever it takes to get it done, she was just willing to do that. And I think that's one of her attributes as an individual, because it shows that when her mind is made up and she realizes that this something that she has to do is something good that will bring about a certain result in her life or in the life of the people that she serves. And by the way, I really love to commend her again for taking
Yes.
up the mantle for dealing with the young people who seem to have challenges and are looking for a purpose, and she's helping them to find their purpose in
Yes.
writing, in music, in songs, in poems, all of that. And I mean, at the end of the day, we need persons like that, individuals like that, who would guide our youths, take
Yes.
that unused, stored up energy that they're struggling with every day and channel it into something that they can actually see is going to work and bring back rewards for them. And they can understand how her, at the age of 8, finding her innate strength, as she says, it was always there. She just needed the outlet. She created that outlet for herself. And so she's helping young people to do the same. But I want to go back to my first point. Many of us are faced with challenges, and sometimes we know what we need to do, but we just don't have the strength, the courage, the mindset to do it and get it done. And we're thinking, well, maybe tomorrow or the next time. But Rachel says when time comes for her to do whatever she needs to do, she does not make any excuses. She just gets it done. And I like that approach about her. Another thing that she says is that she doesn't really worry about the future because she believes once she has found her purpose, and which she does, and she celebrates, she just takes it one day, or as we say, one step at a time. And I like that because it means you don't look to anticipate too much into the future. That could create an unnecessary level of anxiety because you're wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to do this? She
Yes.
plans and she sticks to her plans. She has a method, it works for her, and she uses it to embrace every opportunity that comes her way, to seize the moment and get what she needs to get done. She was a really fantastic and engaging guest. I like her style, her spirit, her
Yes.
energy, and it says a lot about the heart of a warrior. And we need to be warrior like people when it comes to God's business as well, because we are always in a spiritual warfare. Whether we understand it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we believe it or know about it, the minute we became a Christian and we rose up out of that watery grave, we were marked for death by the enemy because we are now putting on Christ. And as a result, everything about Christ he hates. So, a hit, an assassination was put out on us the minute we came out of that watery grave, and the angels rejoice. So, we are always in spiritual warfare, and we have to be aware of that. We must be conscious of that and know that He's not just going to lay back and say, okay, another one for Christ, no problem. Nope, it's a problem for Him. Especially if we become dynamic Christians, we find our purpose in Christ and we are creating opportunities for people, much like what we're doing here on this program. Oh boy, he has a problem. He has a problem. So at the end of the day, I really appreciate Rachel, and at some point in time in the future, Gabriella, we'll try to get her back so we can see what part two is going to look like, something to anticipate and look forward to.
Yes. Yes. Looking forward.
Okay, great. So, based on our schedule, we're supposed to have a promo video, and then we'll have the spotlight moment. It's entitled God's Number One Remedy for Depression and Anxiety with Pastor Gregory Dick O. Yeah, it's Dick O. So, Dexter, can you just do one promo video, maybe Gabriella's, and then we get into the spotlight video, and we'll have a brief discussion after.
Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, whether it's emotional struggles, difficult decisions, or simply feeling stuck. But what if there was a place where you could find not just solutions, but also the tools to create a brighter, more confident future? That's what Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions is here for. Our tagline is mentoring minds, empowering lives. It's more than just words, it's the heart of what we do. We combine counseling to help you heal and process life difficulties with mentorship that offers practical guidance for your personal growth and future success. It's about building strength for today and clarity for tomorrow. We also understand that everyone's journey is different. That's why we offer both secular counseling and faith-based counseling grounded in Christian principles for those who desire a spiritual foundation in their healing process. No matter your preference, we meet you where you are. At Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions, mental health is our priority because we know it's the foundation for everything else. Whether you're navigating personal challenges, seeking direction in your career, or striving to build emotional resilience, we are here to help you strive. Solutions, healing, and a future filled with purpose. That's what you'll find at Gabriella's Double Impact Solutions. Visit us today at www.gabriellasdoubleimpact.com to start your journey because we are mentoring minds, empowering lives. Let's grow together. Life has a way of throwing.
Okay, way to go there, Gabs. So we're now gonna get the spotlight video of the week, and this is a message that we need to really pay attention to. It's God's number one remedy for depression and anxiety by Pastor Gregory Dickow, and he's going to be giving his interpretation or impression of the interpretation of the scriptures with regards to how God wants us as Christians to deal with depression and anxiety. So, there we go.
What disables you from work, from being productive, from being successful, from being a contributing part of society, as a parent, as a kid, as a boss, as an employee, as a business owner. The number one thing that is keeping people disabled from their potential and their ability is depression. Listen, some people have a chemical imbalance, and there are treatments for that. And I endorse the medical treatments for diseases that are of the brain. But we can change our brains, and we can impact our brains with the Word of God, because Jesus is our healer. And either He really heals or He doesn't. And if He really heals, and He's the same yesterday, today, and forever, which He is, He does and He is, then we can believe that He can heal us of mental illness too. He can heal us of depression. He can heal us of anxiety. But here's His number one method of healing us from anxiety and depression, and that is perspective. Focusing on what we have, what we have, what we have, what we have. What was the first commandment? Look, Adam and Eve, eat freely from all these trees. The first commandment was to focus on what they had. And the curse of unhappiness, and the curse of sin, and the curse of bondage, and the curse of being separated from God, all of that came because Adam and Eve focused on what they didn't have rather than what they did have. Today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait till next month. Don't wait till the next paycheck. Don't wait for the next bonus, the next increase, the next good thing that comes into your life. Stop right now, and today start focusing on what God has given you. Start focusing on what you have, what you have, what you have, what you have, what you have. You will become thankful, which creates happiness. Gratitude is the parent of happiness. Gratitude is the parent. Happiness is the child. Gratitude is the parent that gives birth to the child. Thankful. Thank you, Jesus, for breath, life. Thank you for my family. Thank you for the Word. Thank you for the promises. Thank you for the Holy Spirit. Thank you. Thank you for healing me. Thank you for saving me. Thank you. You didn't reject me. Thank you. You didn't send me to hell. Thank you. You sent somebody across my path. Thank you for sending that other person across my path. Thank you for buying me some time, Lord. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for not judging me. Thank you for not condemning me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for the goodness and mercy, Father. Whoa, I'm starting to make myself happy. Because gratitude is the parent of happiness. It's time for all of us to become parents. It's time for all of us to have some kids. And the kids you need to give birth to is happiness.
Okay. It was a short video, just over 3 minutes, Gabriella, but it was loaded.
It was. He went in deep there.
I'm gonna give it the first go. It was loaded, and I've never heard a preacher put that kind of perspective. And he says that what happened with Adam and Eve is that they focus on what they didn't have rather than what they had. And they had so much, and it makes so much sense. Yes, great Vincent. Praises. I love it. Thank you. Wow. Wow, our guest is early. Okay, great. That's nice. So, Gabriella, go ahead. Welcome, Rhonda. Go
You
ahead,
know,
Gabriella.
in listening, hi Rhonda, in listening to in listening to this video, it really isn't easy to change our perspective at times,
True, true.
because our brains are just naturally wired
Hmm.
to absorb the negative. I don't know if you know about the famous saying where they say our brain is like Velcro, for negativity, but Teflon for positivity. So what it's saying is that our minds are just wired that way to gravitate to the negative thinking. So,
Yeah,
like, let's say, for instance, we might be on a job and, you have been doing your best on your job, but your boss come and say, you know what, I find you're not doing this particular thing good. You're
yes,
not going to be focusing on all the positive that was coming before, but that one little sentence is going to replay and replay and replay and replay in your mind for the entire day. And then somebody come and ask you, how was your day? And they say, well, it wasn't that good, But although you had a lot of positive, they focus on the negative, and our thoughts shape our brains, and what neuroscience call it is neuroplasticity,
yes,
right? But God spoke about that even before science did. And
Yeah.
he said if we focus on things that are think we put our minds on whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, and we think on these things, then
Yes.
we have that ability then to grow and to rewire our mind and reshape our mind into the positive thinking. So sometimes we just need to understand, our mindset, our minds have the power to do the negative and to do the positive. But if we focus on the positive rather than the negative, then we can go the distance. And changing your perspective is a process, right? It's not going to be a one-time decision. And you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to just change my mind.
Yeah.
But God spoke about taking every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ, which means we need to be actively, intentional in challenging our negative thoughts and making it and replacing it with God's promises.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, indeed, indeed. And the one thing that stood out to me is when he spoke about just thinking about all the good things that you have that God has actually done for you.
Yes.
And do not waste time thinking about what you don't have because you just don't have it. So we focus on it. And it
Yes.
reminds me of a study that was done at Harvard University. And they say that when one negative thing comes into your mind, studies have shown that you need to repeat the opposite, which is a good thing, at least 17 times. Now, 17 times to dissipate the effect or the negative influence of that one negative thought or saying. And that's
Wow.
powerful. And he is alluding to that in a real sense. What he's also saying is that the more we focus on having a heart of thankfulness and gratitude, is the more content and happy we will be. Wow, that's powerful. As you rightly say, we have a tendency to focus on the negative. And we don't realize when we do that how much we weigh ourselves down and we bar our ability to see the positive and
Yes.
therefore engage in a heart of gratitude and as a result, happiness. Because look at it this way, if we are just grateful or have gratitude for the things that we already have, then we can build and grow on that and gain the ability to get more things. But if we
Yes.
focus only on the negative and we drain ourselves with that negative energy, and I can tell you from personal experience, negative energy can make you feel so tired because it
Yes.
burdens you down. It puts a weight on your spirit and it puts a burden on your soul. But when you
Yes.
get to the place where you recognize, if only I just focus on what God has done for me thus far, be grateful, be thankful, because remember, the transformation and the renewing of the mind is a gradual process. And you alluded to that. And so, while it is a gradual process, we need to engage in that process as much as we possibly can. So, what are we going to feed our minds with? That matters. What are we going to
Yes.
tell ourselves? That matters. What are we going to confess? That matters. So, if we feed our minds with good, positive stuff, then our minds will begin to understand that this is what we truly desire for ourselves and by extension the people around us, our loved ones, family, friends, co-workers, schoolmates, etc., wherever we
Yes.
socially hang out. So at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for our emotions. And we can only do that by being grateful, having that heart of gratitude that would lead to a place where we grow and engage in happiness. And then when that becomes a habit and a practice, and the mind begins to get accustomed to that, that is what's going to come out of us. And we'll be able to share it with people as well, because it will be the thing that we desire the most to have in our lives. Minus the negative, plus the positive. So we are so happy for that. And we have our guests here. And I know our producer has some stuff that he can put up on the screen. So, people, this episode is entitled, where is it? Yeah, How to Forgive the Unforgivable with Rhonda Britten. Now, I'm really taken aback by so many versions I've heard of people talking about forgiveness, Gabriella. And one of the things that I remember is that they always say forgiveness is not for the other person,
It's for
but it's
yourselves.
really for you, the individual,
Mm-hmm.
for yourself. Because if you go around carrying an unforgiven spirit or unforgiven attitude, where you don't seek closure and you always hold this thing within you about this person or this circumstance, you are creating an opportunity to carry an emotional burden and a scar for the rest of your life. That cannot be a healthy thing to do. So while there's the spiritual aspect of it, there's also the emotional and the psychological aspect of it. So we have to be engaged in a level of understanding why it is important to have a spirit of forgiveness. So, Gabriela, I hope you have the information so you can properly introduce our guests.
I can. Thank you so much. So today we are honored to have Rhonda Britten, who is an Emmy Award winner, 600 episodes of reality TV, best-selling four-time author, fearless living, named America's favorite life coach, standing ovation keynote speaker, fair expert on national TV and radio for over 30 years. She has changed lives in over 600 episodes of reality television, authored four bestsellers, including her seminal work, Fearless Living, translated into 16 languages, and founded the Fearless Living Institute, home of Fearless Living Life Coach Certification Program, considered the Ivy League of life coaching training. She was the first coach on television in the world and appeared for 3 seasons as the head coach on the hit daytime NBC show Starting Over, named its most valuable player by the New York Times and heralded as America's favorite life coach. She brings the neuroscience of fear down to earth, giving you a path out of not being good enough using the Wheels technology she developed that saved her own life. She's been read, heard, and watched by millions, coached 10 of thousands of clients, trained 100 of coaches, and now wants to share all she knows with you. No matter the industry or focus of a podcast, every human being on the planet gets stopped by fear. She has coached eight-figure business owners and corporate execs looking for a purpose, for folks who want to find themselves and have more meaning in their relationship. She believes together we can make the world a better place. So without further ado, we would like to bring on Rhonda Britten.
Well, hello, hello. How fantastic to be here. I'm so
Hello.
excited. Hi.
Yeah, how wonderful
Hi.
it is to have you, Rhonda. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
be with us.
Oh, my pleasure. I
Wonderful.
just realized I have my computer glasses on instead of my cute glasses on. So now I'm going to put my cute glasses on. So I can
Yeah,
these are my cute ones and
all
these are
right.
my computer ones, but I can wear my cute ones with you guys.
Hmm.
It's nice. It's nice to have you. So I
Yes.
want to
Yes.
begin by asking you a question that I think it's really something that is happening all around the world today. Most people say, "Nah, that's not me. I'm not walking around afraid of anything. Fear? What fear are you talking about?" But we find out that many a times it's just an illusion, or
Yes.
maybe a sense of denial. What would you say to people who have that kind of mindset, but we know what they're saying is not true?
I love this question because it's so critical because that was me. I never thought I was afraid or scared. I never thought if you would have said to me, "Are you scared, Rhonda?" I would have been like, "No." And I'm talking about when I was at my worst, when I was, crawling through glass, right, trying to change my life. I would have never thought I'm afraid or scared. So I think this is very, very common because people aren't used to admitting their vulnerabilities. But I've got another way to test people, to check people. So I'll never forget this one guy came to my book signing for Fearless Living, and he's like, "I'm fearless." I'm like, "Really? You're fearless? Can I give you a little? Can I give you a little test? I'm not afraid of anything." I'm like, "Really? Well, let's see, shall we?" So I gave him a test, and I am going to read some of the things that I tested him on and you can see if you have any of these. So this is what I normally do, right? I normally, because people are so like, it's not about me. I read this little quiz, and then we'll see how many you have, and then you'll know if you have fear. So if you're in a safe place and you can shut your eyes, so you can nod your head, please do. If you're not, please don't shut your eyes. I don't want you to shut your eyes if you can't do it safely. So I'm going to read a bunch of words and nod your head on each one if you do it or feel it. Okay. So do you ever deny yourself? Do you ever isolate? Do you ever pretend everything's okay when it's not? Do you ever hide out? Do you ever compare? Do you ever judge yourself? Ever whine? Ever get defensive? What about secretly manipulate? What about complain? How about wait and you call it patience? What about complaining or procrastination? What about worry or struggle or blame or deflecting something or trying to control? What about feeling bitter, powerless? What about when you feel entitled or resentful or dissatisfied? Or what about that perfectionistic, people pleasing qualities, that overwhelm? What about that indifference? What about ignored? Do you ever feel ignored? Get into self pity, feel irritated, guilty, victimized, annoyed? Do you ever do any of these things or feel any of these things? Go ahead and open your eyes. And anybody need a chiropractor? How much does your neck hurt by nodding? Come on. I know it. I know you were nodding. So when I talk to audiences, I don't care if it's 1,000 people or 100 people, it doesn't matter. Most people nod their head on over 95% of those words. And so what I do is I show them and support them in seeing that the thing overwhelm, you wouldn't be overwhelmed if you didn't have a fear igniting that. You wouldn't compare yourself or condemn yourself if you didn't have a fear igniting that. You wouldn't people please if you didn't have a fear igniting that. You wouldn't judge if you didn't have a fear igniting this. So people look at their fear responses and they think that those are character flaws, character defects. Oh, I'm a horrible person. I'm judging so much. Oh my God, I'm comparing myself. I know I shouldn't do that. Oh my God, but I'm doing it. I get caught up in it so easy. And they don't think that's fear-based. They just think there's something wrong with them. So then they put shame on themselves. They put blame on themselves. They see it as all these problems. Like I overwhelm, I people please, I procrastinate, etc. So now they have 5 problems, 7 problems, 8 problems, 10 problems. Instead, what we do in fearless living is start seeing that all of those things are simply fear responses. That's all they are. And you wouldn't do any of those if fear wasn't ignited. So once you start seeing like, oh my gosh, I'm in overwhelm and that's a fear response. Yes. And that's when I support people in understanding that there is a core fear that is driving your behavior. And Gabriella was spot on. Our brain is wired for fear. That is what it's wired for. And Gabriella was right on. We have to retrain ourselves to actually live in freedom. So I developed the Wheel of Fear and the Wheel of Freedom. So the Wheel of Fear shows you what your fear is, but more importantly, the Wheel of Freedom shows you how to get off it.
I love it. Thank you so much. What I want to focus on now is you, the individual. Could you recall when you made that transition from being a victim of fear to being someone who understood what fear was and found a way to manage yourself better so that your emotions was not controlled by outward circumstances but by your internal understanding of what you were dealing with? Can you recall for us?
Of course, of course. And if you don't mind, I'd love to recall why I had so much fear I was in denial of. May I share that story?
Sure.
And this will actually help everyone who's listening or watching understand why I absolutely believe you can forgive the unforgivable. I mean, all of us have had something horrible happen to us, and many of us have had more than one thing. We've had many things. And
Yeah.
I believe that the seed of our destiny is planted in our worst days. So
Hmm.
what you're meant to do is actually being planted. That seed by God himself is planted, and you need, again, nobody wants to have horrible things happen, but when we have those horrible things happen, we can use that for fodder. We can use that for fertilizer to support us in becoming who we're meant to be, to live the life our soul intended.
Yes.
So I'm going
Yeah.
to just tell you quickly about my worst day, and then I'll tell you about my transition from that worst day. So my worst day was when I was 14 years old. Grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan in the United States. 360 inches of snow a year. It snowed every day from like, November to May. It snowed all the time. And it had 2 restaurants. the fancy Douglas House Buffet Hotel and Big Boy, and that no McDonald's, no nothing else, just those two restaurants. And my parents had recently separated, and my father was living at his mother's house, but it was Father's Day. And so my father was coming over to take me and my two sisters and my mother out for brunch. So my mother was in her bedroom puffing up a beehive hairdo and putting on her blue eyeshadow and her rose-colored lipstick. And my two sisters are in our one bathroom fighting it out. And my dad walks in, come on, come on, come on, because that's what dads do. And me and my mom start walking out towards my dad. My two sisters still in the bathroom fighting it out. And as me and my dad and mom start walking out, my dad notices it's raining. So he says he's got to get his coat from the car. Now, this coat is a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat. Now, if you know about leisure suit coats, you know how hot that was. Like that, I know that some of you are too young to remember, but hopefully Minister will remember with me, and will remember with me that those leisure suit coats look hot. So my dad opens up his trunk, leisure suit coat out, and I notice out of the corner of my eye that he didn't grab a coat, but he grabbed a gun. And he starts yelling at my mother, "You made me do this. You made me do this." And he fired. And I start screaming, "Dad, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? Stop, stop." And he cocks the gun again, points it at me. And I absolutely believe I'm next. And he blinks and I blink, and he blinks and I blink. And then my mother, who already has one bullet in her, sees what's happening and screams out literally with her last breath, "No, don't." And my father, realizing in that moment she's still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that bullet goes through my mother's abdomen, out her back, and landed in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I heard was, and then my father cocked the gun a third time, put the gun to his head and fired. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of my father murdering my mother and committing suicide. Now, I don't know how y'all would have responded, but this is how I responded. It was my fault. It was my fault. I didn't kick his shins. I didn't grab the gun. I didn't jump in front of my mother. I did nothing heroic. And now my mother's dead. And so for the next plus almost 20 years, I was a person divided in two. The outside Rhonda, who's fine. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Fine. I'm fine. Fine. No, I'm fine. And the inside Rhonda, who self-loathed, felt not good enough, broken, damaged, guilty, shameful, just, hated myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't integrate those two people for a long time. And so when I started to go down that road of, hating myself and pretending I'm fine, I found alcohol, became an alcoholic, got 3 DUIs, that's driving under the influence, and then 3 suicide attempts. And it was my third suicide attempt that I realized I'm not very good at killing myself, not good at it. And if I'm not dying, there must be a reason I'm alive. And right. And so, by the way, when in America, when you try to kill yourself 3 times, they do put you in a psychiatric ward for evaluation. So I got evaluated, deemed not crazy, went back to my little hovel of a studio apartment, and thought to myself, I have to start over. Now, I have to start over. Now, mind you, I read my first self-help book when I was 12, and at 13, I was planning on being a minister. So all those years that I was drinking, DUIing, suicide attempting, I was going to therapy, I was reading books, I was doing everything I could to help myself. And so I had a lot of knowledge and a lot of tools,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't take away the feeling that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't broken. I just kept still thinking there's something wrong with me. And so when I got home from that suicide attempt, I said to myself, I have to start over. And what do kindergartners do? What do 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds do? Well, they get a calendar and gold stars. So I actually went to the store, got a calendar and gold stars. And for the next 30 days, I put a gold star on that calendar anytime I did anything good at all. And those things were like, got angry and didn't break anything. That's where I was, right? And so after the end of 30 days, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And I knew there was hope, and I knew there was a reason I was alive. I just didn't know what it was yet, right? And I was still living in fear. I didn't even know I was in fear during this whole time. If you would have asked me if I was scared, I'd been like, no. If you would have asked me if I was afraid, I'd been like, no, no. Why would I be afraid? It was really only when I forgave my parents, forgave my father, forgave my mother, and then forgave myself that I was let free of the burden of carrying them for almost 20 years and was able to see myself with clarity, and then started to make actions, taking the actions in order to understand what fear was, admit I was afraid, admit it, just admit it is a powerful act, admit I was afraid, and then start to decide, now what, how do I change it?
What an amazing story. And it's passionate, moving. Rhonda, you are a beacon of strength and hope and resilience for so many people. I'm glad that you were so open and vulnerable to share your amazing story. And
Thank
I
you.
have to take a breath. I'm going to hand you over to Gabriella now.
Look at him. Look at him. He's like, you handle it, Gabrielle. You handle it.
Yeah, he backed off. All
You do it.
right. Yeah, I will take the challenge. I will take the challenge.
Okay. All right. Good.
So many people carry grudges for years, and it affects their health, it affects their relationships, their peace of mind. And how can someone break that cycle of holding on to grudges that no longer serve them?
Well, I'm going to build on what you said, Gabriella, a little bit ago about the brain.
Yes.
So, as you said, the brain, the neural pathways, if you're in that unforgiving and that regret and that hateful and that bitter, again, whatever that feeling is, those neural pathways are strong. So now we have to shift those. So you might have a desire to forgive, you might have a want to release the burden,
Yes.
but you probably said so many things to yourself about why you can't. I find that a lot of people that don't forgive or are scared to forgive are really afraid of how they're going to feel, and they're also afraid of what people are going to think of them. It's almost like the anger they have towards that person fuels them to be brave. And who are they if they get rid of that anger? What's going to fuel them then? What's going to make them brave then? So lots of times people don't forgive because they want to hang on to their anger, because that anger is a protection, right? It's a protection from the world. I'm not going to be fooled again. You can't trick me. And so that anger becomes, like you said, what'd you say? It becomes Velcro, right? It becomes Velcro. So I wanted to switch my brain. And so I created an exercise for myself that helps me shift my neural pathways and build new ones pretty effortlessly. So this is the exercise. If anyone's listening or watching, you got a piece of paper in front of you, go ahead and grab that piece of paper and put a line down the middle. So you're going to have two columns, the column on the left and the column on the right. Now, on the top of the left column, I want you to write that person's name, or maybe that organization. Maybe it's a church. Maybe it's a group you belong to. Maybe it's a team you belong to. Maybe it's a business you worked for. So if it's a person, or if it's a business, or it's a political party, or again, whoever you're like, right? Go ahead and put their name on the left hand side. Now we have to do one person at a time, one thing at a time. So pick one and then put it on the left hand side. Now, on the right hand side, I want you to write the words, I'm willing to forgive you. And I know right now you might want to throw up, but just write them anyway. I'm willing to forgive you. Just go ahead and put those there. And now that we have the person's name or organization on the left, and we have the sentence, I'm willing to forgive you on the right, now the work begins. And what does that look like? I'm going to use my dad, since everybody can agree, forgiving him was probably a tough haul. So let's just say that I am still angry and still unforgiving. Under his name, Dad, I might write the first thing that comes to mind, and not a paragraph, a sentence or a word or just a phrase. So maybe I write down, I hate you for killing Mom. Maybe I write that down. I'm going to immediately go to the right-hand column and write, I'm willing to forgive you. Then I'm going to go back to the left-hand column and go, but no, I'm not. I'm not going to forgive you ever. Go to the right-hand column. I'm willing to forgive you. How can I forgive you for tricking us and trapping us on Father's Day? I'm willing to forgive you. You left us with nothing. I'm willing to forgive you, right? And you keep going one at a time, and until you're literally emotionally exhausted. Now, for some people, writing I'm willing to forgive you is like, that's too much. I can't do that. Well, then write, I'm willing to forgive you one day. One day, I'm willing to forgive you, right? So you can put it out in, I'm willing to forgive you sometime in the future, but I don't know when. You can write that. Bottom line is what you're doing is that word willingness creates like an opening, like just a crack in your veneer, right? Just a crack to let the willingness come out, because this is what's happening. On the left-hand side, you've got your emotional, what I call your emotional commitment to still be angry. You've got that person, you've got the proof. Here's the proof. Here's the proof on the left-hand column. But you and I both know you want to be set free from this. You want to release this. You want to let go. You want to feel your true nature. You don't want to be burdened and carry this bag over you, right? So on the right hand side, you're literally telling your brain, okay, this is how I feel, but this is what I want. This is what I feel, but this is what I want. And literally one of the things that has to happen for many of us in order to retrain our brain is to be able to live in the paradox. It's not one thing or another. It's not black or white, right? It's not yes or no. It's not like I forgive you or I don't forgive you. It's I'm willing to think about it one day to forgive you. I'm not going to do it yet, but I'm willing to one day. And that creates both things are the paradox. I don't love you, I'm mad at you, but I'm still willing to do it. That paradox creates the opening where you can shift your life and you retrain your brain. So you're going to do that 2-column exercise until you're literally emotionally exhausted. And you're going to write everything you want to in the left-hand column. One phrase, one sentence, one word at a time. And then again, always follow it with what your intention is. I'm willing to forgive you one day in the future. I don't know when. Again, write whatever you need to in order to write it down. And then do that. Now you're going to probably do that. You're going to do it once and it's going to be like, right? You're going to be exhausted and you might have to do it 2, 3, 5 times. But when you get to the bottom of that exercise and you're feeling a little softer, just a little softer, when you're ready, you don't have to do it before, when you're ready, you can actually then write a letter. And I'm sure, Gabriella, you've done this many times with the people you know, and having them write a letter of forgiveness. So you can write, "Dear Dad, I'm willing to forgive you," right? But that letter is really much more powerful after you start training your brain in order to understand that you can still be mad, still be hurt, still be worried, still be scared, and you're willing to forgive them. When you live in that paradox, writing that letter then becomes a whole lot easier.
Whew. Just need to mentally digest everything.
That column exercise is how I forgave my dad. And I still
Yes.
actually have that. I still have the calendar, and I still have the first time I did this exercise with my dad, and it's in my Bible, because I was like, God, right? Because I
Yes.
knew, based on my commitment to God, I knew I wanted to forgive. I just was scared to, because I was scared to open myself up to that again. I didn't want to feel those feelings again. I didn't want to get rid of my anger. I thought that would protect me. So when I did that exercise, I still have the very first time I did it. And
Yes.
it opened my mind. It opened my willingness, and it cracked a little bit of my heart open to think, wow, who could I be? What could I do if I no longer carried my dad on my back?
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rhonda. And yes, doing that exercise is going to take a lot of
Willingness.
self willingness.
Just
Yes.
willingness, right? Just willingness. If you can
Yes.
only write 3 lines in the beginning, fine. Do the 3
Yes.
lines, go throw up, and then forget about it for a day or two, and then go, because it's going to call you back. Because once you hear my voice right now, once you see us, once we're talking about this, it's going to needle in your brain. It's already needling in your brain, and you're already thinking. I know you are. Everybody who's listening and watching, I know you're thinking like, oh gosh, who could I be if I let that go? And again, we never have to have lunch with them. We don't have to talk to them. We don't have to become friends with them. We don't have to meet them, but we have to set ourselves free. And this is a one way to do it.
Yes, and that's actually my next question. Can you actually forgive without reconciling? And should we always try to restore the relationship after forgiveness?
Well, my father was dead.
Yes,
Right? My
but for
father was dead.
for persons who may be challenged with that right now, what would you say to them? Can they forgive without reconciling, or do they have to restore the
They
relationship?
do. They do not have to restore and reconcile if if they're not ready. But this is what I know to be true. When you're able to see that you respond in fear and you respond in freedom, and you start realizing, oh my gosh, I do some hard things to people when I'm triggered, when I'm in fear. I mean, my father killed my mother because he was afraid. He didn't know how to handle his emotional life. He was afraid of being humiliated. He was afraid what people would think of him. He was afraid of being laughed at, right? So he rather, instead of dealing with his emotional life and learning how to manage his emotions, he got rid of the thing that was causing in his mind those emotions, right? So do you have to reconcile? I'm going to say you don't have to, but what I do know to be true is, when you've really forgiven, if you run in on them on the street, run into them on the street, and you don't have any feelings, you don't have any response, you don't care one way or another, because when you start that forgiveness process, you probably want to do it for yourself too. And then you're going to start understanding that people do things because they don't know how to do anything different, because they're driven by fear, they're driven by their closed-mindedness, their closed-heartedness, and they're trying to push you away, they're trying to hurt you, right? And once you can see that they are simply afraid and have no skill and don't have the tools to change their life, right? They don't have the tools, they don't have the skills, and they're in this horrible mindset of fear. When you're able to forgive them, your heart opens, and you have an ability to have more empathy and compassion to, how did that person get to that place to do that? How did they get there, that they would even do that to me or to anyone, right? So I'm not talking now about people that are the 1% of people that have brain damage. Those people don't have a consciousness, many of those, because of the brain damage. They don't have the ability to have empathy or to have compassion. But your job is to have empathy and compassion regardless if they do, because that's setting you free. Because the more empathy and compassion you have for somebody else, the more you can give it to yourself. I train coaches, and one of my coaches, there's an exercise I do called acknowledgements. And I find acknowledging yourself, and I find that when my coaches go through the program, it's one of the hardest things they do, because if I acknowledge myself, because most people, they don't acknowledge themselves because they go, well, I could have done it better if I would have started earlier, or if I just would have, I could have done, I should have, right? Like they have a reason why it's not the best ever. Well, that is taking away your self-esteem. That's literally draining off your self-esteem. So one of the tools that I help my clients learn, and my coaches in training, is to learn how to acknowledge themselves. And my coaches really quickly find out that they have a very difficult time acknowledging their clients when they have a difficult time acknowledging themselves. So when you're willing to forgive another, your forgiveness opens up to yourself for all of your past quote unquote mistakes, all the things that you hate yourself for, you wish you never did. Oh my God, the regret, the pain, right? We do not want to live with regret snapping at our heels. We do not want to live with regret on our shoulders. We want to forgive ourselves, forgive the others, keep our heart open, keeping that empathy and compassion so that we can be used fully and completely by God.
And I'll ask one more question before I hand over the mantle again. How can forgiving the unforgivable lead to, a deeper sense of purpose in life?
Would you say that again, please?
How can forgiving the unforgivable lead to a sense of purpose in
Oh,
life?
gosh. Well, okay, imagine this. Let's say that there's, 3 people that you haven't forgiven. Now imagine how much space that takes up in your brain and heart. Imagine how often you're sidetracked by those feelings, right? Imagine how much anger you have to stuff down to pretend you're happy during the day. Imagine how much regret you must hide from. Well, all of those emotions that are being stuffed down, denied, hidden, avoided in order to keep your unforgiveness in place actually need to be used in service to your purpose. So whenever you keep yourself held back, that part of you, that little part of you, that little stone, that little rock, that little bit of you, just imagine they're stuffed into your soul and they're being held back, right? You're holding yourself back and your soul is trying to be set free. Well, when you don't forgive, you're in fear. And fear is the number one way to stop your soul from expressing itself. So in order to live the life your soul intended, in order to live your purpose, you must be willing to set your soul free. And in order to do that, you must recognize fear for what it is And you must say, I love myself no matter what. I'm willing to practice that because it's not always easy to do, but you could practice that. And then what's keeping me unloving? What's closing my heart? Well, that unforgiveness. I have to keep them the enemy. I have to keep talking bad about them. I have to get my complaining buddies together. I have to keep judging to make sure that I'm right. And one of the things that I teach is, are you willing to be wrong about everything to find the right life for you? Now, hear me out. Are you willing to be wrong about everything to find the right life for you? So if you're not willing to be wrong, you're closing off parts of yourself. You're being righteous, i.e., in the way of fear, not righteous in the name of God.
Wow. I think when you was talking there, I started to mentally feel tired because I could see how holding on to this, and you're basically taking your brain and just occupying this space for the negative, and that could
Right.
drain you mentally, emotionally, physically. But if you take that same energy and you divert it to things that could uplift you and find that purpose, then it makes
That's
it
right.
easier. Yeah, so thank you. I'll be handing over the
Thank
mantle now.
you. Thank you. And, I teach a purpose class, and in my purpose class, I talk about, because everybody wants to find their purpose, right? We want to
Yes.
feel that we are in alignment with source. And, some people have a specific purpose, like I'm meant to help people master fear. That is my purpose, right?
Yeah.
And other people have just the highest purpose of all, which is to be a vehicle for love. And that to me is the highest purpose of them all. So if you're not sure of your purpose, if you don't know what it is right now, take on the purpose of, I am going to practice being a vehicle of love. When you practice that, the purpose that you are meant to do in the world, express in the world, trust me, will find you really easily and really effortlessly. So if you're not sure what it is, if you're lost, I'm confused, like, I don't know, then take on the purpose of, I am willing to be a vehicle of love. Because when you are that, God can find you a heck of a lot easier. And he goes, she has more energy. She's more able. Okay. Okay. He's in the right. Okay. I can hand over that purpose now. So be willing to be that vehicle of love if you're not sure what your next step is meant to be.
Vehicle of love. Andy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am I'm touched, I'm moved. We
Blown
just keep
away.
just getting better and better with our guests as they come in.
Yes, yes.
So Gracie Vinson has a comment there. She says forgiveness is so good for us. We free our minds. Do or matter what someone tells or do, you learn to forgive. You may not forget, but you
That's
will
right.
have a free mind. Oh my
That's
Yes.
goodness.
right. That's
Somebody
right,
get
Gracie.
it. That's right. Thank you so much for that comment, Gracie. You will have a better conscience. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. We love it.
And you will have more choice, because when you are frozen with that unforgiveness, you don't have a lot of choice. And so when you unfreeze yourself, you will have more choice, and you'll be able to use all of your brain rather than just the fear part.
Yes.
Absolutely wonderful. So now we'll just give everybody a breath, a breather. We'll have we'll have the thought of the week because we've been going at 90 miles per hour. The thought of the week, and I think it's very apt and appropriate based on the theme of this episode. The thought of the week: the love of God has no conditions except acceptance. It is available freely to everyone. May I repeat that? The love of God has no conditions except acceptance. It is available freely to everyone. So that's your thought of the week. And we thank you for continuing to tune in on the LBW Radio Network and also our Facebook and YouTube channels for breaking out of depression. Rhonda, you have written some bestsellers, and tell us among those that you have written, which one you think is the most potent in terms of the message that you want to share with the world now that you have found your purpose and you are actually serving by helping people. Oh my goodness, there she goes. Fearless living. Why?
Fearless living, fearless living.
Tell us
So,
why.
when people ask me what book they should do, right? I say this is how you decide. If you want to master fear and you want to understand it, and there's a whole section on forgiveness in here. I actually tell you my forgiveness process, my ritual that I did. And if you want to understand fear and quit blaming yourself for those character flaws and instead see them for the fear responses they are, then definitely do fearless living. If you want to have actions, like if you're a coach, a therapist, a leader, etc., and you want a toolkit of tools, then change your life in 30 days is going to be really critical, because that's 30 tools, 30 days. Fearless loving is if you want to be more loving in your life to yourself and others. And then, of course, my last book, Do I Look Fat in This, will make you laugh really, really hard if you're working on your body image. You'll pee your pants laughing the whole time. That is my funniest book for sure. You probably won't even be able to put it down. I'm just saying. But if you're wanting to move to the heart of my work, that is definitely fearless living.
Okay, thank you so much, Rhonda. We appreciate that and we appreciate you. What does the future look like for you? I mean, you have so many accomplishes. You have literally maybe even crushed some records and created some new ones
Yes.
in
Yeah.
terms of your television appearances and so on. But
Yeah.
what does the future look for you in terms of a continuation of your purpose?
Right now in the world, as we are watching so much of the world and so much of the United States collapse, fear is at an all-time high. So I believe the world needs fearless living now more than ever, because we cannot be in denial anymore about what we're afraid of. And the other thing, I'm working on this huge project. I'm really excited. It's going to launch in the next few months. And it is for coaches, therapists, leaders, managers, supervisors, people who want to learn more coaching skills in order to, and parents, so many parents come to me and go, I want to learn coaching skills for my kid. So if you are interested in learning about coaching skills, I'm actually going to be launching a brand new podcast in order to share those skills, share everything I know. I've never actually shared everything I know about coaching. I've been doing it for 30 years, and I only teach my students in the life coach certification program. Well, now I want all coaches, all therapists, all leaders, all wellness practitioners, etc., to know them, all executive coaches. So I'm going to be starting that in the next few months. I'm also going to be having a tool certification. So in the past, you were never able to get certified in my tools. Well, now I'm going to certify you in my tools. So that's pretty gosh darn exciting. But I have something for everyone right now today. If you go to fearlessliving.org /risk, fearlessliving.org /risk, RSK, I'm going to gift you one of my clients and one of my students' very favorite exercises. It's called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And it's going to help you cure procrastination. And it's going to show you how to start making movement towards your dream, towards your goals. And more importantly, it's going to show you how to do it. It's going to show you what's been stopping you and how to do it. It's 3 15-minute videos. You can listen to audios as well. And in the last 15-minute video, there is me describing the wheel of fear. So you're actually going to see the wheel of fear in motion. So you can actually see it, and then you'll maybe resonate with it. So go over to fearlessliving.org /risk, RSK. Get that course. It's 3 15 minutes. It's got workbook. It's got templates. It's got everything you need in order to start moving forward, no matter what your dream. If it's health, whether it's career, whether it's love, whether it's money, there's templates for all of them. So go over there, get that, and start there. Do it in the next 24 hours. And then once you do that course, you'll be in my world.
Uh, I'm looking at living fearlessly, but the question is, let's suppose you are living in an environment where there are fearful people all around you, your boss, your spouse, anybody in your social cycle seem to
Yeah.
be fearful. You are living fearlessly. You have overcome it. You're managing your emotions. You're not being triggered by triggered moments because you have found closure, you have found peace with yourself. But the people that are around you, your spouse, your boss, they're struggling.
Yes.
How do you deal with that situation?
Well, one of the things that I really know is that many people do not become fearless because of that.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many people say to me, well, I would change too much. I would get a divorce, or my friends won't like me, or my family's not going to talk to me if I learn how to speak up and put boundaries in place and, follow my purpose, right? They have this whole belief that they're going to be jealous, or they're going to think I'm, uppity, or, I'm bigger than my britches, right? Or I'm selfish. So a lot of people, many, many people, stop themselves from moving in the direction of their dream because they're afraid of what other people think. So it's real. The question you're asking is so important because we really want to start dissecting and having discernment about our friends in our life, our family in our life, our bosses, etc., and start seeing what areas of their lives, of their life and my life, are they fear junkies? Are they trying to shut us down, trying to keep us small because of their own fears, right? Their fears, but they're applying it to us. So there are fear junkies in your life and fear busters in your life. And by the way, your best friend could be your fear junkie around health and a fear buster regarding relationships and career. So people can be fear junkies in one area or two areas, and then fear busters in all the rest. And what we do is, what we have a tendency to do is go, well, she's my best friend, so I'm going to talk to her about everything. No, don't talk to her about the things she's a fear junkie in. Use her, support her, bond with her in the ways that you both can be fear busters together. So that's really important. Start having discernment about what comes out of your mouth and what you share with who, right? Because some people don't want to hear about your dream. And instead of saying they don't really love me and they don't, they're not really for me. It's like, that's their fear. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. So quit taking on their fear and making it your own. The other thing you must do is start learning more communication. So you can actually say things to them. I'll give you an example. So let's say you have a friend that's a complainer, right? Complain. And you know what? You used to complain with them. Okay. But now you know better. You're like, I'm not going to complain. And now you just listen to the complaints, right? But it's the same thing over and over again, right? Same complaint over and over and over again. I invite you to say something like the following, and it's going to take a little courage. I've heard you talk about ABC so many times, and I really don't know how to listen. I don't know if you want my support to solve it, or if you want me just to listen and agree with you. Would you help me out? Now, what does that do? What does that do? It puts the responsibility on them, and it also wakes them up to what they're doing. So when you say that the first time to somebody who you've been friends with a long time, they're going to look at you and go, "What are you asking?" I go, "Well, I don't know how to listen. I've been really working on listening better, and I don't know how to support you. Do you want to figure out a solution for this, or do you just want me to validate you? I don't care which one it is, but please help me out." Well, I just want you to validate me. Oh, okay, right. Well, then right there, they're not looking for a solution. They don't even care about a solution. They just want to vent. Well, now then you have an opportunity. Let's say they vent you 10 more times, 8 more times, and it's draining you. Well, then you get to learn when they start venting or complaining, go, oh, hey, do you want a solution or demand? I just want you to validate me. Okay, great. Well, I have about 5 minutes. And you literally, after 5 minutes, go, oh my gosh, I got to go. And they're going to be like, what? Oh, I can't believe you're leaving. I know I have an appointment. See, we have done, and I did this too. I never trained my family and friends to respect my time. I never trained them. So when I first started doing fearless living, I started saying things like, when a friend would call me, I'd say, oh, just so you know, I've got about 10 minutes to talk. Okay. Now you know what happens when somebody calls me? Immediately I've trained them. They go, how much time do you have to talk? And then I say, oh, I've got all the time in the world. I've got 3 minutes. But this is the key. You have to get off. If you say 10 minutes, you got to get off in 10 minutes because that's the only way you'll train them. And they're going to then become more awake and conscious of what they're doing. And you just doing these things, just a few little things I've given you, is actually going to start making them conscious about what they're doing, more awake to what they're doing, and also more conscious and awake to what they want. Do they want to find a solution? If you keep asking them and they go no, they've got to admit to themselves, you know what, I don't want a solution. I just want to complain. Okay, all right, just know that about yourself. Just know it about yourself. So it's really important that we use these gentle nudges to support us, which in turn supports them.
Rhonda. So many times we have heard people, and I myself may have, occasionally used the term that there are some fears that are healthy.
Oh,
And
sure.
sometimes some people tell you if you did not have a limit of fear, then you may become emotionally imbalanced. And then there are the experts that say you have to understand that fear is a system that warns you of some impending danger, not necessarily to cripple you or to make you feel less important.
Yes.
How do we get people, Rhonda, to understand that aspect of it, where they know about fear, but they don't think that fear is, oh my gosh, it's not a terrible thing. It could be at times quite healthy.
So every feeling you have has a job to do. Okay. And fear's job is to keep you safe. That's its job. So there are physical fears and emotional fears. Physical fears we can all agree with, right? Like, oh, I see a scorpion. That's dangerous. That's a fear. I'm afraid of scorpions. Okay, we all get that, and we're all like, oh yeah, run, right? Or we're on a building, on top of a building, in the 50th floor, and we have a fear of heights. Most people are going to be like, oh yeah, please don't go there close. You know, we're totally compassionate and totally allowing people to have their physical fears. What most people don't understand is your body and brain, your neurobiology doesn't know the difference between physical fears and emotional fears. So your fear of rejection is the same as the fear of heights. Your fear of success or your fear of looking selfish or fear of, being a loser are the same as if that scorpion happens, right? So but we don't know that. We don't realize that. So again, I'm going to go back to what Gabriella said when we first started. Your brain is hardwired for fear. It is hardwired. So you have to retrain it in order for it to support you. Now to go back to what you said is fear doesn't come up. The wheel of fear doesn't get ignited if you're sitting on the couch eating Doritos. It doesn't get ignited. You're not triggered sitting on the couch eating Doritos. You're only triggered when you're contemplating or doing or maybe even unconsciously feeling that want, that like something shifting, but you don't even know what it is. You're not even conscious of it, but you're just feeling that shift. And you're about to, what fear is worried about is for you to go crazy and go into the unknown. So freedom equals your ability to live in the unknown. Freedom equals your ability to live in the unknown. But fear, that's the last place it wants you to go. So anytime you have a problem in the present, your literal neurobiology is wired to look in the past for a solution to the present, and you are hoping that it creates a different future for yourself. But our brain and body are hardwired to just go in the past to look for something. And that's why we feel like we're on a little rat on a treadmill, like, right? We go over and over and over, no matter how smart we get. We actually have to make a choice to use our neural pathways up in our executive brain, up in our prefrontal cortex, and actually slow down, pay attention to what's happening around us, pay attention to what's happening inside of us, our emotional life, and stop and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm overwhelmed. I'm procrastinating. I'm etc. And go, wait, this is just fear. This is just fear. That means, yay me, I'm contemplating consciously or unconsciously a shift in my life. Wow, this is amazing. So fear doesn't visit you unless you're actually about to take a risk. You're contemplating a new way of being. You are actually wanting and craving to go into the unknown. So that fear is just a signal for you to go, I'm amazing, I'm amazing, I'm amazing, I'm amazing, I'm amazing, right? And then move on to what I call, like I said, the wheel of freedom. So yeah, your brain and body are hardwired to do neurobiology, but this is the deal, like we talked about, it can be retrained. And so you've got to put in the practice, like you said earlier, 17 quote unquote positive things for one quote unquote negative thing. Well, there's even a different way to do that, which is, what if you didn't look at feelings or emotions as good or bad and just looked at them as emotions? And then what if you said, oh, I'm angry right now, and it wasn't negative, it was just anger, and you go, what's anger wanting me to do? Anger's wanting me to change something. Anger's wanting me to speak up. Anger is tired of me putting up with this. Anger is ABC. That's what it wants. Now, we don't want to use anger to move forward, but that anger is giving us a signal saying, this isn't working for me anymore. And we just want to have the tools and the skills to do it powerfully, empowering, not hurting ourselves or others, but in a way that really supports our connection with another human being and with ourselves in a fearless way. So yeah, if you're triggered, it just means you're amazing. And you are contemplating, again, consciously or unconsciously, in the unknown. You might have watched a movie, right? You might have watched a movie, or you might have talked to a friend, and something, whatever they said, just triggers something. Maybe you're jealous. Well, jealousy is your desire to kind of do what they want. Maybe not exactly, But maybe you're jealous of their ambition. Maybe you're jealous of their drive. Maybe you're jealous of, what they're earning. Maybe you're jealous of something. But that jealousy is meant to fuel you, not from a place of I'm going to get better than them, but from a place of like, I have more in me to give, right? So when we can look at feelings and our emotions as neutral and just go, I want to use these feelings as fuel in order to support myself to live on my will of freedom, then it's a game changer.
Okay, so we just had a classroom session there with Rhonda.
She took us back. She took us back.
That was a whoa moment. I love it. I love it. I love it. So next, do we have the other promo video available? Let's just take a breather again as we closing on 11 more minutes, and we can come.
Hi, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development. Do you need a dynamic voice and an engaging personality? Keynote speaker, facilitator, and a holder of retreats? Or for leadership training, group communication, team working, and personal development? Andy Anderson Charles is the man. Email me at lovebitsa@gmail.com or telephone 1-868-290-2395. I'm a certified life and development coach, internationally accredited, internationally awarded, with 20 years of experience, a man of godly compassion and heart. Or visit my website at andys/personal/development.com and get your intentionality, clarity, and purpose. See you soon. Bye for now.
Oh, thank you, Dex. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. So, Gabriela, I'm gonna give you the next 5 minutes or so. I know that you had some time to think, and
Yes.
we're gonna put Rhonda back on the spot again. She's doing well so far.
Yes, she definitely, she definitely is. Now, Rhonda, when we talk about fear, sometimes they say that in order to conquer your fear, you have to confront it. Let me put it out there. Like for me, I'm afraid. I would say it both. I'm afraid of spiders, right? And looking back, I would say is because I was traumatized as a child. I used to, my granddad used to put me up in the spiders in the wall, and I just used to be screaming. So now, if I see it, it's like instant fear, right? What
Yeah.
would you say for someone? And they say in order to overcome it, you could play games that have spiders. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that because it's going to trigger more fear. So how do you get someone to actually confront their fears when it comes to, because it comes like like you're re-traumatizing your mind, or you're putting back your mind into that whirlwind. How do you advise someone who, have to conquer their fear using the real technology that you use?
Well, I'm going to say one thing. If you have a fear of spiders, and it doesn't impact your daily life, okay, all right, right? Because
Yes.
that's physical fear, not an emotional fear. And so you can talk about the physical fear of spiders and people can get it. And they'd be like, yeah, just ignore spiders, right? But again, going back to those emotional fears, our emotional fears get ignited all day long, right? And we don't even know why they're getting ignited. We're just like, wait a minute, what's happening here? So, my philosophy is, I have no interest in you confronting fear or, overcoming fear or breaking fear. Again, fear is part of our neurobiology. So instead, we want to love fear. We want to use it as an asset. We want to actually use it as our friend. We actually want to shift our view of fear itself. So being able to see the difference between physical fears and emotional fears is key. And then it's like, okay, well, why am I getting stopped here? Why do I always judge somebody? Why do I always A, B, or C? Well, your wheel of fear was created by the time you were 6, 7 years old. And sure, it might have something to do with how you were raised and, that person putting spiders on your back, right? It could be lots of different experiences. It could be where you grew up, how you lived, who raised you, etc. But they also have now determined that some of our fears are actually handed down through our DNA. So we may never know why we have a fear of failure. We may never know why we have a fear of intimacy. We may never know why we have a fear of success. And actually that why question is irrelevant, because knowing why isn't going to get you to a solution. It's just going to take up a lot of time. And most people, spend a lot of years going, if I just figure out why, I'll be able to break it. Instead, you don't have to figure out why. Instead, you can just break it. You can just move beyond it. You can actually just change your definition of fear. You can actually see fear differently than what it is. Now, again, I know that fear affects our thoughts. It affects our heart, our emotions. It affects our body sensations. So some people feel fear in their body sensations, right? They get a neck ache, they get a backache, they get a sore throat, right? They start getting shivers. Some people feel fear in their body. Other people have thoughts and, I'm a horrible person. What's wrong with me? Why can't I get this? And other people feel it in their feelings, dread and just regret and just pain and guilt, right? And some people feel it all three. And what you want to do is go, okay, wait a minute. How do I feel fear? Oh, what are my fear responses? Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier in that quiz is when I'm first working with somebody, one of the first things I want people to do is start keeping a track of all their fear responses. And one of the things I notice is that people want just a few fear responses because they think that makes them more evolved. But no, it makes you ignorant because you actually want to write down every fear response you use. If you get overwhelmed, write it down. If you get jealous, write it down. If you get judgy, write it down, right? If you close yourself off and isolate, write it down. Because the more that you're able to see when you are in a fear response, the more you then can decide and make a choice to do your life differently. You can choose to get on what I call the wheel of freedom. You can choose another way of behaving. So there's no getting rid of fear. It's part and parcel of who we are. It's about understanding its purpose, understanding how to use it in your benefit, and how to actually become its friend. So I don't tell people they have to confront it. I tell people they have to love it. And I show them how that it's not scary at all, right? We've just been, because it's so invisible to us and it's so an enigma and we can't get our hands around it, right? And it doesn't necessarily feel the same for all of us. It's just invisible. It's tricky. And instead, we want to bring it to the light. We want to share the light. We have to have it see the light so that we can see it for what it is instead of keeping it hidden from us.
Awesome. Andy, I know that would have taken up the 5 minutes.
Yeah. It is so engaging that we have Rhonda here.
Yes,
So much raw
so
capacity.
much knowledge.
Deep, it's fascinating, it's engaging, it's knowledgeable.
Yes,
So I'm thinking something here, Rhonda. Some people harbor fear so much that it becomes traumatic.
Yes, yeah,
And when that happens, it can lead to tragedy, it can lead to depression,
yeah,
suicide.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it possible that we can help them to not go into that next level where the trauma becomes overwhelming for them?
Yes, yes. So I love this question. I'm so glad you brought it up. So, you know, I used my story of my parents. Of course, I never told anybody about it, right? I would lie about my parents. I didn't want anyone to know that my father killed my mother, right? I'm from one of those families. I didn't want anyone to know that. And so I would lie. Um, and when I first started moving forward in my life, one of the things is I started sharing my story, and it was terrifying. It was literally terrifying, and I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid of I would re-traumatize myself, right? I was just afraid of so many things. But I knew that my growth would be equated to how comfortable I am telling my story. It would be one way that I could tell. Now, I'm going to step back for a minute. Remember when I said, I had 3 DUIs and 3 suicide attempts and I became an alcoholic? Well, those are what I call self-destructive behaviors. And that's what you're talking about. Having people go all the way around the wheel and dumping into self-destructive behaviors. Well, in order to help yourself and move yourself through that and not go into self-destructive behaviors, we actually want to, again, determine our fear responses. So I'm just going to show you really quick so you see an image so you can see what I mean, just for ease. For those of you who are watching, you can see this in action. So this is the wheel of fear, right? So we get triggered, right? We get triggered. Something happens, we get triggered, and we go into fear responses. See how we go up to fear responses? If you label your fear responses, if you know your fear responses, you can actually stop fear in its tracks right there. But if you don't pay attention to your fear responses and it tricks you, and it still tricks me, we go into that core negative feeling. And when we go into that core negative feeling, that might be worthless. That might be a failure, right? That might be your disappointment. That might be you feel damaged goods. That might feel like you're an outcast. And once you're in that core negative feeling, unless you catch yourself, you are going to dump into self destructive behaviors. So, self destructive behaviors is the last spoke on the wheel. So your job, your opportunity is to kind of catch yourself above that place, to catch yourself sooner in the cycle. So when you're at a party and you see somebody giving you a dirty look, instead of ignoring that dirty look and pretending like, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, which then might get you cycled, just admit, oh, that dirty look hurt. That dirty look hurt. And you go and talk to a friend, or you breathe, or you do something, and you remind yourself that that dirty look isn't about you. That dirty look is their fear. That's not about you. It's not about you. It's not personal. And the more that you can see that their fear isn't your fear, then you do not have to dump into core negative feeling and in those feelings of self destructive. Now, if you are in self destructive and you are in that core negative feeling, then this is what I want you to hear. Your number one job is to be kind to yourself. Your number one job is to be gentle with yourself. Your number one job is to practice compassion with yourself. So usually when we're in core negative and self-destructive, we're hard on ourselves. Come on, you better get with it, get with it. Or we get really depressed and just bow out of life, right? Well, both those things cause us to, move down on the cycle. Instead, our kindness, oh, I'm really tired, I'm feeling really depressed. Okay. Well, I love you. I love you. Even though this is where you are, that's okay. Let's just go get a little soup. Let's just go get some water. And this is you talking to yourself, right? So kindness and gentleness and compassion and self-love, practicing acts of self-love when you are feeling at your worst about yourself, is incredibly healing. And it is the salve that will make you go, wait a minute, I don't want to die. Wait a minute, I want to live. I want to feel alive. I want to thrive. I want to be in joy. So when we are having those feelings and we're not being gentle with ourselves, then it creates that block, right? It creates that Velcro, as Gabriella was talking about. So we don't want to join that. And now, by the way, in order to practice this, you're going to forget everything I said today, probably. So what you want to do is you want to write everything down. You want to write yourself a script so that when you're starting to have that core negative feeling, that feeling that you don't want to feel, you're going to read that to yourself. You're going to read that to yourself to remind you of the truth. When you get down to self-destructive, you're going to remind yourself of the truth. You need reminders. So whether it's this podcast, whether it's a letter you write to yourself, whether it's putting on your favorite sermon over and over again, but you need to remind yourself. And taking those actions is actually you saying to your brain, yeah, I know this is where I am, but this is not who I am. This is where I am, but this is not who I am. I know that I am more than that. And so, yes, you might be depressed, you might be sad, but you're going to take a proactive behavior and take an action towards yourself. It will start healing yourself. So that's just one way to do it. But again, I just want to repeat, kindness and gentleness, compassion, forgiveness are going to move you further faster always than being hard on yourself. 100%.
Yeah. And Gracie Vincent says, wonderful program, Miss Rhonda. You
Thank
explained
you.
it. You explained it all. Most certainly did. And so we have come to the end of this wonderful and engaging program. When we close off, Rhonda, just stick around for a couple minutes. I'm sure our producer has something that he would either want to offer you or say to you. But I would give you this moment to remind us where our people can go to get that thing that you offered earlier in the program, that particular
Sure.
website. Just repeat for them one more time.
Sure. Fearlessliving.org, fearlessliving.org/risk, fearlessliving.org, ORG, /risk, RISK. So fearlessliving.org /risk, RSK. And the last thing that I want to say, and I want you to take this in your heart, everybody who's listening or watching, is there is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. And I want you to soak that into your cells and know that's the truth for you.
Thank you so much. You have been a
Thank
wonderful
you.
and engaging guest.
Yes.
This has come to the end of this amazing episode, Breaking Out of Depression, How to Forgive the Unforgivable with Rhonda Britten. And I've learned so much. So, Gabriella, closing words before we leave?
Yes, so thank you so much, Rhonda. It definitely was engaging. It was a lot of information, and I hope that the audience do take into practice what you would have shared. And I just want to leave with two questions. What would it feel like to live unburdened, and what might be possible if you release the weight of what has been holding you back? And if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone, and until next time, healing is possible and freedom is closer than you think. So I am your co-host, Gabriella Woods, alongside Andy Charles, our host. Keep choosing faith over fear.
And Bernadine S. Wood says, good night, wonderful program. Be gentle with yourself, echoing the sentiments of our guest, Ron. So thank you so much. So until next time, this is Andy on behalf of all of us on the LBW Radio Network. We are saying so long, Godspeed, God bless. And remember, in all that you do, keep doing everything that you can to break out of depression. Bye for now, guys. Until next time.
There ain't got no way, ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord, no. Ain't got no way I'm gonna make it without my Lord. Trouble in my way, but daily hear me say, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way, ain't got no way. The harvest is plenty, Lord, but the workers are so few.